coming up towards 7:25 in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, we were just talking about the start of Lent. Ramadan is coming up, but for the Hindu community, the festival of Shivaratri is something that is almost coincides with the carnival period for us in Trinidad and Tobago. And indeed, it's gained greater attention with Machel Montano, who needs no introduction in the entertainment space or any space in Trinidad and Tobago or the wider entertainment environment because of his performance at the Shivaratri observances in India. Well, to give us some context to it, just to make us understand better exactly what that was all about, we have Dr. Visham Bimal, founder of Caribbean Hindustani, with us. Dr. Visham, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, happy Ash Wednesday and Shubh Shivaratri to all your viewers.
Well, that's the first time I ever heard a happy Ash Wednesday, so I'll take that one on board as well. Just first and foremost, and I know we have a lot of ground to cover this morning to clarify things. Shivaratri, and the major one which would have been happening around this time, which coincides, as it seems, with Carnival every year. What is that essentially about?
Well, I mean, growing up as a Trinbagonian, that's something I always notice. Just look at some comparisons here. Smearing of ash on the half-naked Digambars or naked rishis, ascetics, quite similar to Juve and the Ash Wednesday practice of dust to dust, put in the ash from last Palm Sunday to accept our mortality, drinking of bhang, which is cannabis-laced milk, and the tantric dance of creation and destruction. I mean, you had Dr. Minto Bin, who I know very well, one of my mentors. She spoke about procreation, and this is the season of spring, which is what you mentioned before. So, I mean, it's no coincidence that something like Shivaratri would happen around the time of Carnival. But as you ask me more questions, I'll elaborate more.
Sure, and just in relation to Machel Montano's involvement with the event itself in India, just explain that to us, please.
So I think the genre he sang was soca. For the average Trinidadian, if they don't know what soca is, it is a unique form of a cultural song expression. I think as Rashoti, I had spoken about it, with his intention of the invention of that word. So soul for soul and ka for calypso. So the soul of calypso. And I think that's what Machel wanted to bring forth. With regard to our unique expressions here, that element of the Indo-Caribbean identity and its dedication to that period of Shivaratri, as well as during Carnival. It's not a coincidence that it occurred at the same time. So I think as Trinbagonians, we should feel proud that on such a stage where millions would have viewed and Machel represented us, I think we should be very proud of the marketing of our Trinbagonian identity.
And because of those historical connections, Dr. Visham, what do you think a performance like this and the way it would have been received, as we could clearly see from the audience as well, what does that represent in a place like Trinidad and Tobago where we've lived together for so long, but yet still seem to know so little about different cultures and different elements of our culture? What do you think something like this could actually represent?
And that is our remnants of colonialism. I want to quote Amrit Rai, the grandson of Premchand, who is one of the poets of modern Hindi, Hindustani, Urdu poetry. And this is an important quote. But on the other hand, we cannot forget that divisive forces are at work. It is not difficult to change the whole look of a culture by simple expedient of underplaying the elements of a people that unite them with the others and overplaying what distinguishes them. I mean, if we look at from the perspective of colonial rule, divide and conquer, where you take the two major factions of the population and make them feel they are different by highlighting their differences. I think Machel highlighted our similarities.
And from your own point of view, and I suppose it's good to ask you this perspective, I've often heard Machel describe himself as a spiritual person. And I've had an issue with that because I see some of the performances that he would have on stage with women scantily clad and how they perform and so on. I say, how could that be spiritual? And looking at this and the way that this is being performed, do you see a difference between what we would call spiritual or religious in the doctrinal sense? How would you describe this? Is this a spiritual type of experience or a religious type of experience? How would you describe it, Dr. Visham?
Well, we know Maya Angelou came out and said in her early life she was a prostitute. We know that Malcolm X said he was a gangster. At the end of the day, we are put here for a purpose, and that purpose is to unite our fellow men and look at the positions these individuals have. So one should not judge an individual on his past errors, but also look at present, what he's trying to do. In Hinduism, we have 4 ashramas in development. Bal Brahmachari as a student, the Grihastha, or the life of, or the household life of marriage and procreation. Then we have the business stage of achievement. And then finally we have sannyas. So one wonders if a person could reach this stage of contemplation to the divine, to bring forth knowledge. I mean, look at his impetus on the soil movement and coming to Trinidad now to do that as soil as a renewal point. I mean, that comes from Hinduism, where we talk about Mother Earth and how we should respect her and how we shouldn't take too much and how we should venerate and return back so that we always have.
And before we conclude on this particular point, I know Caribbean Hindustani has an event coming up on Saturday. If you could tell us a bit about that. It's about Dance Yatra. Just give us the information on that before we return to our discussion.
So Dance Yatra is a celebration or a journey of dance. It is a effort where we're trying to fund orphans. We have one orphan boy who we want to educate in such a way with regard to empowering youth with identity. That's the impetus. So actually it is raising funds to continue to educate this orphan. And we'll also add more all over the diaspora, Trinidad, Guyana, and Suriname. So this is one of our GoFundMe events where we would look at, getting children educated in cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, where our education system has failed. So that's the whole impetus behind this.
So it's happening on Saturday from 6 p.m. What do people have to do if they want to link up, if they want to contribute to this particular event?
Well, everything there is on the GoFundMe link. You just go on Caribbean Hindustani, you would see the flyer, and the flyer gives all the information as to, I mean, if you want to donate something, you could go ahead, and it'll be a Zoom link and it'll be recorded. So it's online within pandemic times. So yeah, everybody is invited to come and enjoy an expression of our secondary diaspora, Indo-Caribbeans in Europe.
And getting back to the issue of Shivaratri and Machel Montano's involvement in the event, which certainly made quite a bit of headlines, not just here in Trinidad and Tobago, but beyond, to show those cultural links. Do you think we're making any headway significantly in that regard? You mentioned that historical colonial influence which would have kept us divided. There seems to be a significant amount of pretense that goes on in our society where people say, well, yeah, I like doubles too, or my favorite food is roast breadfruit and whatever, but still there are some deeply ingrained prejudices that we just can't seem to get out of. What is your own view on that journey?
Well, I mean, for us in Caribbean Hindustani, it's all about the education. I mean, people don't realize that there is a parallel in the Roman Catholic system of what we celebrate, which dictates our holidays. So in spring, when they celebrate Easter, we celebrate Holi, right? Now spring has begun. That's what Shivaratri represents. In summer, there's Raksha Bandhan, Krishna Janmashtami, and Corpus Christi. Those are also linked. In autumn, there's Navratri, Diwali, and Halloween. And in winter, there's Makar Sankranti, Saturnalia, which is now celebrated as the birth of Christ, as well as Christmas. So there is a link, and I guess hopefully your media house could open up that conversation as we celebrate these events so that we educate people on our similarities and less on our differences.
But as we conclude our discussion, Dr. Visham, are you seeing an improvement from your time when you were a child, when you were at school, and the attitudes and the perceptions and so on? Are you seeing a change? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What is your perspective?
That's a pertinent question. I think it comes to media as to what is promoted. Like in health, we say media should promote healthy behaviors, but yet we see advertisements of alcohol, KFC, and all these things. So again, that's I think something from the Ministry of Health should intervene, but the Ministry of Culture and Tourism needs to intervene to kind of get policy to get such information out there in the media, which influences the public immensely.
Indeed it does, Dr. Visham. We want to thank you very much indeed, Dr. Visham Bimal, taking the time to provide us with some context to Shivaratri and Machel Montano's involvement and the broader issue of our relationships with each other in this place called Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to be with us.
And thanks for the opportunity.
You're more than welcome. Let's see if we have another image for you for Trinbago, your nice feature. Let's see what we have for you this morning. It's from our archive. It's a day at the beach. I spent a whole day at Maracas a couple weekends ago, and just sitting around doing nothing. I was so tired, but it can be quite relaxing, especially when there are very few people around. The fewer people, the better. But thanks for our viewer for this very nice day at the beach at Maracas at 6:36, not 6:36, 7:36 in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm feeling so relaxed that I got the time wrong. Let me make sure I get it right. 7:36 in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be back right after this.